A dirty old farmer walked into a luxury aircraft showroom, and they laughed in his face. Wichita, Kansas, the birthplace of American aviation, home to legends like Beechcraft, Cessna, and Learjet, a city built on grease-stained hands, wide skies, and men who worked their way up from nothing. In the wealthiest part of town, tucked between private banks and cigar lounges, sits a luxury aircraft showroom. Their place of leather chairs, polished floors, overpriced espresso, and egos bigger than the jets on display. That morning was supposed to be just like any other. Slick suits, shiny shoes, rich men talking about range and fuel efficiency. But then, the doors opened, and a man walked in wearing muddy boots. He wasn't some Silicon Valley tech bro or a politician's son. He was a farmer, an old one, and you could tell he didn't give a damn what anyone thought about it. Faded jeans, weathered shirt, stubborn jaw, hands that looked like they'd wrestled barbed wire more than once, boots caked with dry Kansas soil, a straw hat pulled low over tired eyes that had seen droughts, storms, and war. The moment he stepped inside, everything stopped. One salesman paused mid-pitch. Another leaned on the counter, smirking. The receptionist glanced up from her phone and blinked twice, unsure if she was looking at a customer or a mistake. And then someone muttered it under their breath, just loud enough for the others to hear. "What the hell's a dirty old farmer doing in a jet showroom?" They laughed. All of them. Subtle chuckles, arrogant grins, sideways glances. But here's the thing. This wasn't just any old man. This was Earl Thompson. And by the time this day was over, he'd remind them all what real power looks like. Before we go any further, if you believe a man's worth isn't measured by his clothes but by his character, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button and join us for more true grit, justice, and stories that remind the world. Real men don't need to prove anything, but when they do, it's unforgettable. The bell above the door gave a soft chime, way too polite for the kind of man who'd just walked in. Boots hit the marble like thunder. Slow, heavy, deliberate steps. He moved like someone who never rushed for anybody. Every step echoed against glass walls and polished chrome, a relic from a different era, carved out of grit, not spreadsheets. He looked out of place, but he didn't care, not for a second. Earl Thompson, 74, Kansas, born and raised, fought for the flag, built his life from the dirt up, 10,000 acres of wheat, corn, and cattle that had fed more families than half the men in that room could count. He wore a sun-bleached Stetson and a button-down shirt older than most of the employees there. His jeans were dusty, his boots were scuffed, and his hands told the whole damn story. Thick fingers, scarred knuckles, palms stained by decades of honest labor. In his right hand, a weathered leather wallet, in his eyes, steel. And yet to them, to the slick salesmen in slim suits and overpriced watches, he was just another poor old hick who got lost on the way to the tractor lot. They didn't see wealth, they didn't see pride, they didn't see power. All they saw was dirt. One of them, maybe 30 at best, with a fresh haircut and shiny cufflinks, stepped forward. Smirk already forming. He crossed his arms, tilted his head and said, "Sir, we don't do crop dusters here. Maybe try John Deere down the road." A few chuckles from behind the counter. One of the interns nearly spit out his sparkling water. Even the receptionist gave a nervous smile. In the back, another salesman, older, quiet, watched it unfold without saying a word. And Earl? He didn't flinch, didn't even blink. He looked the kid dead in the eyes, slow and steady, then let his gaze drift across the showroom. The jets, the lights, the ego. Then he turned back to the salesman. "I ain't here for a tractor, son. I came to see what kind of fools sell million-dollar toys, without the sense to recognize a man who could buy the whole damn building." Silence. The room froze. And just like that, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. He didn't raise his voice, didn't puff his chest, he didn't need to, because real men never have to announce their power. They just walk in, get underestimated, and leave a lesson behind. The young salesman didn't back off. If anything, he doubled down. He took a step closer, smirk wide, like a man who thought he was being clever. He sniffed the air and waved his hand dramatically. "Damn, smells like cattle in here all of a sudden." More laughter, softer this time. The kind that stings worse because it's half hidden. Earl didn't move. He didn't smile. He just stared. The kid looked him up and down like he was livestock at auction. "Listen, sir, this is not the county fair. You won't find plows or hay bales here. These jets are for real buyers, corporate executives, private investors, not whatever you are." The words hung in the air like diesel smoke. Another salesman, older, late 50s, silver hair neatly combed back, stood behind a glass counter. He shifted uncomfortably, cleared his throat, looked away. You could tell he didn't like what he was hearing, but he didn't say a word. The young punk kept going. "If you're lost, I can call someone to help you back to the farm, or maybe get you a brochure on used trailers." He chuckled and glanced around, expecting more laughs. A few nervous ones came. The receptionist looked back down at her keyboard. Earl looked at him, long and hard. Then, slowly, he set his wallet down on a nearby glass table, not to open it, but like a man planting a flag. He stepped forward, just one step, and said in a voice low and steady like distant thunder, "Son, I've seen men like you before. Hair full of gel, mouth full of shit, and not a damn clue what real money smells like." The room went dead quiet. "You ever plowed a field at 4 a.m.? Chased cattle through freezing mud? Buried a man you fought beside, then worked a double shift that same day?" The salesman blinked. The grin started to crack. "Didn't think so. Now tell me again, smartass, who exactly are these jets for?" For a moment, no one breathed. Then Earl picked up his wallet, turned around, and walked slowly toward the exit. No yelling, no drama, just the sound of boots on marble. But before he reached the door, he paused. Without turning back, he muttered just loud enough for the room to hear, "You just lost the biggest sale of your miserable career. But don't worry, I'll be back. And when I return, make sure your name ain't anywhere near the contract." And with that, he walked out, leaving behind silence, shame, and a salesman who'd just learned the first lesson of manhood: never mistake quiet for weakness. If you've ever been underestimated and came back stronger, this channel's for you. Hit subscribe and stick around for more stories where real men don't talk big. They just show up and get it done. Earl stood still for a second. He didn't flinch, didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He just looked the kid dead in the eyes, calm, unshaken, the same way a rancher looks at a wild bull before putting it down. Then, without blinking, he said, "You just made the most expensive mistake of your life, boy." The young salesman let out a short, smug laugh. "Sure," he scoffed. "Come back when you're done with the chicken coop." Earl didn't respond, didn't even bother with a glare. He simply turned around, slow, steady, and walked toward the exit. No rush, no anger, just boots hitting the floor like a slow drumbeat, one after another. Solid, confident, heavy with the weight of a man who's seen worse and outlived all of it. The kid behind him shook his head, chuckling to himself like he'd just won a game. But the room wasn't laughing anymore. The older salesman, still leaning behind the counter, kept his eyes on Earl the whole time. No smirk, no amusement. Just something else behind the gaze. Respect, maybe even regret. The receptionist lowered her phone, suddenly unsure what was so funny. Earl pushed the door open with his shoulder and stepped out into the Kansas sun. He paused on the sidewalk for a moment, tipped his hat down just slightly, and muttered something no one inside could hear. Then he climbed into a dusty old Silverado, turned the ignition and rolled off down the street, slow and steady, like a storm heading for the horizon. They thought it was over. They thought they'd chased off a nobody. But what they didn't know was that Earl Thompson wasn't just walking away. He was setting the stage. And the next time he walked through that door, he wouldn't be coming back alone. The next morning, before the showroom even flipped its open sign, a black Silverado 2500 HD pulled up to the curb. Freshly washed, chrome gleaming in the sun, the same Kansas plates, same dust under the wheel wells, but this time it meant business. From the driver's side stepped Earl Thompson. Only now he wasn't wearing farm clothes. He had on a plain charcoal grey suit, no tie, just a white dress shirt with the top button undone and the same old boots. Polished, but still worn. Still real. His Stetson was the only thing that hadn't changed, same as always. From the passenger side came a sharp-looking man in a blue blazer, leather folio under his arm, branch manager at First National Bank of Wichita, and behind them, stepping out of the extended cab, a broad-shouldered gentleman in a cream cowboy hat and bolo tie, Earl's lawyer of 30 years. They walked through the glass doors like a storm front. The showroom was already alive with sales chatter and elevator music. The receptionist perked up and froze mid-greeting. Earl didn't stop, didn't look left or right, didn't acknowledge a single soul, especially not the young salesman by the coffee bar, who dropped his latte the second he saw who had just walked in. Earl walked straight up to the older salesman, the one who'd stayed quiet the day before, looked him square in the eye and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Morning. I'm ready to buy 2 citation jets, cash, 1 for me, 1 for my boy. Deliver them to the Thompson hangar in Butler County." The room went dead silent. Then Earl leaned in just slightly and added, "And I won't sign a goddamn thing until that smart-mouthed punk is off this floor. I don't care if he goes to lunch, gets fired, or sent back to his mama's house, but he's not standing here while I do business." The branch manager nodded, already opening his folio. The lawyer crossed his arms. The older salesman swallowed hard and looked toward the back office. Moments later, the dealership manager came hustling out, fake smile plastered on his face, sweat already gathering at his collar. "Mr. Thompson, sir, we had no idea." Earl raised a hand. Just one. "Don't you sir me now. Yesterday I was just a dirty old man, remember? Let's skip the song and dance. I've got cattle to feed." Then he pulled a checkbook out of his inside pocket, handed it to the bank manager and said, "Make it 12 million even. Add whatever fees you want. I'm not here to haggle." He glanced over his shoulder one last time at the young salesman who now stood frozen, pale, hands trembling. "Let this be a lesson, boy. You don't judge a man by his boots, because the man wearing 'em might own the land your whole damn world's built on." The bank manager closed the folio and gave a short nod. "Funds cleared. Check signed. 12 million. No financing, no negotiations, just raw old-school power." The dealership manager stood there stiff, trying to mask his panic behind a corporate smile. "Mr. Thompson, this is... well, it's truly an honor." Earl didn't even look at him. "Spare me the butt-kissing. You weren't laughing yesterday, but you sure as hell weren't stopping it either." The manager's fake grin died instantly. Silence crept in like a cold front. Earl turned to the young salesman, now standing frozen near the back of the showroom, pale as drywall. Their eyes met. "You've got soft hands and a smart mouth. Bad combination in this world." A man who talks more than he listens never sees the door swinging shut in his face. He paused. "You lost 12 million because you couldn't smell money through the dirt on my boots." The kid blinked, looked down, said nothing. Earl turned away from him like the conversation and the boy weren't worth another second of his time. He stepped up to the older salesman, the one who had stayed quiet, watched everything with the eyes of someone who'd seen real things in life. Earl looked him in the eye and said, low and solid, "You showed respect, that matters. Commission's yours, both planes." The man swallowed hard, nodded once. That kind of nod men give when there's nothing more to say and everything has been understood. Earl placed the signed check on the counter. 12 million. 2 jets. And one big reminder for everyone here. Never judge a man's wallet by the dust on his jacket. He turned to leave, speaking one last time. Not loud, but firm enough to echo across every wall of that overpriced showroom. Some of us still earn our money the hard way. And when we spend it, we make damn sure it means something. Then he walked out, boots clicking slow and steady, like a man who had just done what real men do best: say less, prove more. The sun was high over Butler County, casting golden light across miles of Kansas farmland. Wheat swayed in the breeze, cornfields stretched as far as the eye could see. And in the middle of it all, a private airstrip carved into the land like a signature. On the edge of that strip sat a hangar, clean, wide, proud, with a freshly painted Thompson Ranch crest above the doors. The ground rumbled, engines approached from the sky. 2 citation jets, sleek and silver, descended side by side, cutting through the blue like hawks returning to the nest. Their wheels touched down smooth on the asphalt Earl himself had paid to pour 20 years ago, back when no one thought he'd ever need it. He stood outside the hangar, boots planted in the dirt, hat in hand. Next to him his son Caleb, mid-40s, tall, weathered like the old man, but with softer eyes. Caleb was a crop duster by trade, a pilot by passion, flew low and fast over every acre his father had built. The two men watched in silence as the planes taxied into place. One of the pilots climbed down and handed Earl the keys, metal tags, no ribbons, no champagne, just clean American steel. Earl held them for a second, then turned to his son. "One's mine, for checking fences and flying out to see your brother." Then he pressed the second key into Caleb's hand. "The other's yours." Caleb froze. "Dad, I can't." Earl cut him off with a nod. "You earned it. Every damn flight, every damn acre. You fly over what we built. Let 'em know the Thompsons still own the sky." Caleb stared at the keys, speechless. Behind them, the American flag waved atop a tall wooden pole. Not store-bought, carved by hand. Below it, the family dogs barked in the distance and ranch hands gathered quietly at the fence line, hats off, watching the moment unfold. Earl looked up at the jets, then out across the land. 50 years of sweat. 50 years of sunburns, busted knuckles, and cold coffee before dawn. Now 2 planes sat in front of him, not as trophies, but as tools for the next chapter. He put his hat back on, turned to his son and said with a rare smile, "Let's go for a ride, just don't scratch the damn paint." They laughed, the kind of laugh that says everything's right in the world, at least for today. As the engines cooled and the dust settled, Earl stood beside his son in front of the hangar. 2 jets, 2 generations, 1 legacy. The first plane, his, would be for checking the land, flying out to see old friends and visiting his youngest, who worked engineering jobs out west. A tool, not a toy, just like everything Earl ever owned. The second? That one was Caleb's. A man who never asked for anything, never expected a reward, just worked, hard, quiet. Every day. Earl handed him the key and held his gaze. "You worked hard. You earned it. No parade, no speech, just truth. The kind that only means something when it comes from a man who's bled for every dollar he's ever held." Caleb nodded, jaw clenched. You could see it hit him like a punch to the chest. Not the plane, not the gift, but the respect behind it. As the father and son walked back toward the house, boots crunching in the gravel, the camera pulls back. Wheat fields stretch to the horizon, the flag waves in the wind, and the jets glint in the sunlight like silver promises. Then the voice returns. Steady, deep, final. In this world, people forgot what a man's hands say about his story. Don't let the dirt fool you. Sometimes it covers more honor than a $1,000 suit. If this story hit you where it counts, if you believe respect is earned, not worn, then you belong here. Hit subscribe and stick around for more real stories where men like Earl Thompson remind the world what strength, legacy, and honor truly mean. The next day, the young salesman's nameplate was gone from the desk. No farewell party, no handshake, no thanks for your service. Just a silent, clean cut, the kind that happens when you cost your company $12 million because your mouth ran faster than your brain. Word spread fast, no one said much, but everyone knew, and a week later, folks around town started whispering. They say he was spotted over at Green Valley Tractor and Equipment, wearing a borrowed Carhartt jacket and trying to act like he knew the difference between a John Deere and a Kubota. Guess he finally found that tractor dealership he mentioned. Life's funny like that. Sometimes you laugh at a man's boots and end up begging for a job polishing them. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe. We tell real stories here. Stories about grit, pride, and standing your ground. Because in a world full of noise, men like Earl Thompson still matter. Stick around, we've got more coming.